Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our staff meeting today. If you'll note, Commissioner Lopez is on her way to Colorado to a NACO Diversity Inclusion Conference, so she will not be here, but she is monitoring us during her travels and will be watching this. We also want to welcome Sheriff Easter today. He's going to talk about staffing levels that are kind of critical at this point in time. Oh, that's kind of the gist of the meeting today. Mr. Manager, do you have anything else?
No, that is the only topic today, sir, is the sheriff's discussion. He and I had a meeting late last week, lengthy meeting, and it's a significant enough issue. I thought the commission should hear this right away. So,
good morning, Sheriff Easter.
Good morning. Appreciate you giving me the time today to discuss with you the critical staffing levels we're at. And I'll start off with saying that we had 2 more resignations over the weekend. And it used to be, 2 resignations at one time did not cause us to go into having an emergency staffing meeting, which caused us to do that yesterday. So that's where we're at, starting off with staffing. Staffing numbers, budgeted detention deputies positions that are budgeted is 228 positions. We have current openings of 110, plus we have 2 that are pending employee status conferences, which will probably be terminated, which puts us at 112. Our vacancy rate is at 49%. Right now, the starting detention pay is $19.34 an hour. As of today, we have 96 deputies working inside the facility. We have 10 deputies working inside of the annex facility, and we have 10 deputies that do our cell and facility searches, other critical activities. We have 1 canine deputy for drug, because we still are getting quite a bit of drugs inside the facility. So they do our drug interdiction, and then we have to have deputies that run inmates around the city of Wichita for various doctor's appointments. The amount of deputies that are assigned right now in the main facility is 33 on first, 32 on second, 31 on third. When you factor in days off, that leaves us with 23, 22, and 21 deputies that are actually working. That doesn't factor in vacations and sick time. Deputies per shift assigned to the annex is 5 on, we work 12-hour shifts there, 7A to 7P, 5 days a week. So on first shift we have 5, second shift we have 5. If fully staffed, the amount of deputies per shift in the main facility is 70, 70, and 61 per shift. If fully staffed, we have 10 on first and 10 on second in the annex. At full staffing, we have 50 deputies that should be on duty on every shift. When fully staffed, that gives us a ratio of 30 inmates to 1 deputy. Currently, we have 23 deputies on first shift. This is a 69 to 1 ratio. And remember, 30 to 1 is also what the jail standards are nationally. Second shift has 22 deputies on duty. That gives us a 69 to 1 ratio. And third shift has 20 deputies on duty, which gives us a 75 to 1 ratio. So if there is other issues, but I'm not going to discuss those publicly. If you would like for me to come and speak to you privately in reference to this slide, I would be more than happy to. When it comes to recruitment efforts, being that COVID is over with, and sorry, let me shut this off. We have been able to go out to recruiting events in 2022. We've gone out to 28. We have a full-time dedicated sergeant that is doing nothing but working on recruiting. This particular sergeant met with all the Hispanic churches in Wichita. 10,000 flyers, recruitment flyers was sent out to the community through those churches. We had 0 applications. Have worked with other faith-based partners as well. We've increased our budget to advertise on Indeed. In the beginning, we were seeing more applications, but like I had reported to you probably last year, we have folks that are applying, and then That's all we hear from them. We call them on a constant basis, never hear from them. So they're just applying for jobs for whatever reason. And then once they go through the process, we have, they get narrowed down to a point where, like last year in May, we had 100 applications. We hired 4 out of there. I will tell you that the some of the quality is of the people that are being hired is not great. We had an individual 2 weeks ago admitted to using marijuana in the past, those type of things. We push him through. Shows up to take his polygraph test, and the polygrapher asks him again, have you used any type of drugs in the last year? And this individual said, well, yeah, 2 days ago I used marijuana laced with fentanyl. Do you want to see the video? And he took a video of himself doing it. So how folks like that think that they can be in law enforcement, I have no idea. But that's an extreme, but that's what we're seeing. We visited and recruited from 9 area high schools in May of 2022. We do that every year because that's a population that generally we can hire from, the 18 to 22-year-olds. We've increased our presence on Facebook and Twitter ads, and we've increased our presence at McConnell Air Force Base and Fort Riley. So we are on social media. We're trying every avenue we can, which some of these are new avenues, to try to recruit. We have started putting in new strategies for the last 6 months, trying to offset the staff shortage and offset some of the safety issues that we're concerned about. Currently, we do not have personnel in 4 dormitory pods. What that means is it's monitored by cameras within our master control, and when staff gets time, they do rounds in those dormitories. We've increased inmate out of county if the out of counties will take them. There's a lot of reasons why out of county isn't the greatest option, i.e. during COVID, none of the counties would take our people. We have counties that want to pick and choose who they want. We have counties that don't want to take females. We have counties that as soon as they get offered more money, our people are booted out and come right back here. And so there is problems with out-of-county housing. However, right now we've had folks that, or jails that have taken our inmates for right now. So we've rented out 1 pod, which gives us 1 extra duty or 1 extra deputy on duty per shift. We're in the process of emptying out a 2nd pod. That gives us the opportunity to have 2 deputies not working in pods per shift. We are housing with Meade County again, which can take about 40 of our inmates offline. Would like to have a conversation with you about that as well, because rates are going up. Commissioned deputies from the sheriff's office, from myself down to the deputies are working in the jail. 4 deputies are working inside the jail per shift 7 days a week. This has been taking place for over a year. Commissioned deputies have taken over all the duties of guarding inmates in the hospital a year ago. We've had as much as 5 to 6 inmates inside the jail. Generally, we have 8 to 9 deputies working on the street. On 3rd shift, that means 5 or 6 of my deputies are in the hospital and not on the streets on 3rd. During 1st and 2nd shift hours, we cover all that with overtime. We've increased mandatory overtime and what we call essential overtime for detention deputies. This has been going on for years, but we've had to increase it in increments at the times that we start going shorter on staff. What that means is we give the deputies the opportunity, based on seniority, to sign up for 4 extra shifts a month. We're going to be increasing that. And so they sign up, and those are the 8-hour shifts that they'll work 4 times a month. We've also mandated that twice a week, folks will work mandatory overtime, which means when we're as short as we are, we're always going to be mandating overtime. And if nobody signed up, somebody that's worked 8 to 12-hour shift is going to have to work 4 extra hours to 8 extra hours. On average, every deputy is working that twice a week. We have some deputies that volunteer to work it because They're very dedicated employees, and they do not want to leave staff short like we are. But that's the mandatory overtime that we're doing right now that is going to have to increase. I will also say there is a breaking point when you are short-staffed on budget savings. We're past that breaking point, and I see Lindsay's here. You know, when you're 40 to 50 people down, yeah, you're saving a lot of money because you're not spending as much in overtime. When you're 90 to 112 people down, we're not saving any money. In fact, we could be in trouble at the end of the year when it comes to salaries and not having enough money to pay all of the overtime that we're having to pay. Proposed strategies, we have 3 options. And I know this is broadcast on YouTube or Facebook Live. I put out a video to our employees yesterday, letting them know that we were going to discuss these strategies today. I'm going to make it clear again, these are just discussions. We have not settled on exactly what we're going to do. We're going to go back to our employees after this and speak to them about it, because anything that we do in there can cause other problems. We've talked about removing deputies from pods. We would only staff 5 pods inside the jail. A big problem with that is that on first shift, we serve meals, we do courts, we have sick call, and those type of things. We have to have the deputies in the pods to run that smoothly. This doesn't solve our problem. We talked about placing a skeleton crew on third shift, where we cut it down to the bare minimum, basically booking people and some rovers checking in the pods to do inmate checks, which is not a good thing, because we could have inmates that are having issues in their pods and we might not find them for quite some time. It also causes a huge problem when it comes to safety for our deputies. So that's really not an option either. The third option is the one that I'm specifically talking about when we're going to talk to our deputies, because this option could cause us to lose more people. This option has problems because people who have daycare, working 12 hours a day, 4 days a week, could cause problems with daycare that they decide not to stay here. We have deputies that believe that 12 hours a day, 4 days a week would be more that they're working now. We know that that's not to be true, but we have to explain that and also get their feedback. And if we're going to have mass exodus based upon it, this isn't going to be an option. But the third option is to have 2 shifts of 12-hour days with 3 days off. Would work from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. would be staffed with 58 deputies. So we would do away with third shift, take those deputies and disperse them between first and second. On average, 32 deputies would be on duty, but we still need 37 deputies to do the job that we have to do every day. 7P to 7A would be staffed with 38 deputies. On average, 21 deputies would be on duty. However, 26 deputies are needed to cover the positions to run the facility as safely as possible. We were hoping a month ago, when we had the staffing, that this would do a cut down on the amount of commission coming in and working, because they're working a ton of overtime in there and hospital duty plus their regular duties, so they're getting burned out as well. This does not affect whatsoever commission deputies working in there and the overtime being spent. Deputies on first shift would still have to staff all the pods that we currently staff. Some of those pods, because the nature of our population now, would have to be 2 deputy pods. But this would give us enough staff to be able to do that. All meal service, so breakfast, lunch, and dinner would be served on first shift. All medical sick call would take place on first shift. From 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., the facility would be completely locked down. Only emergency medical would be provided along with normal medical checks. That's it. All visitation, pro-visit, and programs would end after 7 p.m. The only really program we have going right now anyway is our Christian Ministries organization, which provides faith-based services to the inmates. A lot of the programs still haven't come back because of COVID, and if the program requires a deputy to be in there while it's taking place, we've shut it down because we do not have the deputies to do it. Critical to this is all 4 master control positions would have to be filled, because all of this is going to require cameras to be monitored the entire time. Currently, only 2 deputies on average are in master control due to staffing. This is critical as well. In each one of those cells is a intercom, where inmates push the intercom for whatever issue they're having, or if there's a medical crisis, or if something else is going on. Right now, when you have deputies in each pod, they handle all of the communication that's going on. This would all be handled by 4 people. That's roughly over 1,000 inmates that are in cells, and then everybody that's in dorms. That is going to be, it's going to be an issue, but that's what we'll have to do. Again, this doesn't affect commission side working in the jail. Second piece that I want to discuss with you. Commission deputies' pay is not competitive, as I've discussed before, with agencies in Sedgwick County. This is the breakdown of those agencies and what they make. Not asking to be up there with the Kansas Highway Patrol or the Wichita Police Department, but we have got to be competitive with the Bel Airs, the Mazes, and the Derbies, and we are not. We're appreciative of the 2% raise that came in July. You add, if you all vote in the 8% raise, plus the 2% raise, the starting pay is $22.44 an hour. That raises us above the Wichita State Police Department. We are starting to lose commissioned deputies all the time now. I have lost 3, or not I, we have lost 3 in the last 3 weeks. We have another individual that's been with us for a year and a half that Mays has offered him a job as an SRO at a higher rate of pay than their starting pay, and he's probably going there. I want to make it very clear at this point, pay is the issue, not management, as has been suggested in the past. Starting before 2010, raises were based on performance with yearly pools ranging from 0% to 2.5%. This equated for some staff to only receive a 5 to 10 cent raise for the year. This practice caused all of Sedgwick County to have pay issues. That's why we're in the boat we are now, because of our past practices. Starting in 2015, I proposed that unless we start paying detention a better wage, we will lose more deputies. We're there now. Pay was not adjusted until the pay plan was installed in 2019. By then, we averaged 30 to 50 positions open on a regular basis. We also started losing commissioned deputies to other local agencies. Unless significant pay raises are given, we will experience the same issues in commission in the next couple of years that we're experiencing in detention, without a doubt. We cannot compete with a Mays, Kansas, who's paying $23.50 an hour starting, and we're paying barely over $22. Last year, I asked for a $3 an hour pay raise for detention deputies and corporals because we were averaging 70 to 90 positions down. The commission approved, and resignations slowed. Resignations have been on the uptick again, mainly due to detention and commission deputies accepting positions with different local law enforcement agencies and the amount of burnout that we're experiencing due to the low staff. The 2 individuals that resigned over the weekend, both of us told us they like working here, but they're not seeing their family. They're not around their kids, and they can go work for $19 an hour somewhere else and have a home-life balance. Currently we have 2 applicants for detention with 112 openings. We have 13 applicants for 18 open positions in commission. And we also know that was before we've had 2 other folks leave us on the commission side, and we have at least 4 that are going to retire by the end of this year. We've lost 9 deputies in the last month to law enforcement agencies locally. We have more deputies looking at openings with other agencies, as I've discussed before. To attract more quality applicants and to retain deputies currently working for Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office, pay has to be adjusted to $23.50 as a range for both commissioned and detention deputies. We're going to have to pay folks to come in and work in the jail in that environment a lot higher rate of pay. A long-term pay plan has to be put into place so we do not get to this point again, and to build trust with the employees on what wages will look like in the future to retain them. Do not have the numbers on the proposal because, again, started looking at this last Thursday when I called Manager Stoltz. So I don't know what that would cost, but is more than willing to work with county staff to provide any follow-up information and to provide any of those type of numbers to the commission. And with that, I'll take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Sheriff. I appreciate it. I guess I wish Lindsay was here today.
She is.
Oh, she is. I'm sorry. Very good. I didn't see you. I apologize. A couple questions. First of all, if we give a large pay raise in the interim, what does that do to corrections? That's the first question.
Chairman, anything we do with detention, we'll have to consider for corrections as well. We just, through the new corrections pay plan that you all voted for, we finally have them equal now between detention and corrections. If the commission takes any action to deal with detention, we would have to look at an equitable situation for corrections. Otherwise, we'll create a situation that we had a year and a half ago where you have people coming from corrections over to detention and vice versa if we imbalance that pay. Very similar job duties, very similar types of work, so we should keep them equitable.
Okay. I guess, Lindsay, if we go to $23.50 as recommended by the sheriff, what does that cost us, and do we have money in the budget for 2022?
This year, you're saying 2022?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Make sure you're saying 23.
We're going to have to solve it.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I moved to the table now. So, to do this increase, as the sheriff pointed out, you get to about $22 when we take into account the 2% plus the 8%. So right now, within our existing budget, I'd have to go and look at our operating reserves to see if we would have sufficient funding to escalate that 8% into this year for both the sheriff and corrections, and then whatever ripple effect there would be. We, in the recommended budget next year, we do have ample contingency. We also have a compensation contingency, but again, we would need to kind of look and see what that ripple effect would be for our other departments. Right now, I can't give you a total cost estimate on what that would be.
Well, as we look at the 2023 budget, that's something that we need to consider, but I'm really worried about his problem today.
Sure.
And so we need to find out where we're at in 2022. Can we get him up to the level throughout his organization that he's asking for currently? Do we have adequate funds to take us through the rest of the year? As I recall, there was still some money available in corrections, so if we gave them a pay raise, we could probably pull some of that money in, correct?
On the grant side, we absolutely could for corrections. It would be the impact on the corrections general fund side plus this. And then I think part of the challenge would be working with HR to understand what this does to the rest of the pay scale for the sheriff's office. So I assume, Sheriff, it would not just be those entry-level positions that you'll get to bump. It would be everything.
That was the practice when I first came here, and it caused all the compression issues, and we started losing people at the other ranks because they're getting paid less than folks that were being hired on. So,
Yeah. So we have to solve not only the entry fee, we have to solve the compression issues on top of that.
Right.
So how long will it take you to do all the magic numbers to figure out whether or not that we can solve the entry fee to start recruiting people and solve the compression so that we can retain the people?
It sounds like they could work on it today.
By 5 o'clock.
Let's not get crazy.
and like I said, I know I discussed it with Lindsay and Sheena and said, hey, this is what I'm going to propose. And I know that they need the time, and we'll work with them like we have on everything else to get the work done to be able to assist you as well.
Hey, well, we're going to have to get this on the agenda, and where his situation is today, we don't have a meeting tomorrow, but we got a meeting next week. Next week, I don't know, it's not too soon, honestly, so I don't want to put a lot of pressure on you all, but we've got to solve this problem immediately. We can't just keep kicking it down the road. Okay, other questions? Commissioner Howe?
Thank you, Chairman. What was the, we made a number of adjustments over the last little while. What was the starting wage, just say, 2 years ago?
No, I'd have to go back and look it up. It was 14 something when I came here. 2 years ago would have been in the $15 range.
Yeah, the commission gave a $3 an hour raise a little over a year ago, so it's 15, so it's somewhere in that area.
And so, yeah, anyway, right now it is,
1934.
that's more than $3. That's why I'm wondering. That's in addition to other changes as well, so.
With the 2% raise that was granted this year, it raised it to 1934. We were at 1860 or 1870 with the $3 raise last year.
And there was a raise at the beginning of the year too.
Yeah, there was a 5% raise at the beginning of the year.
I think I saw somewhere that you did have some response with that change in terms of you saw some improvement, some more interest.
We did. We had people that stayed, or we would have been in this position last year. That's why I asked for the $3 an hour raise last year.
Other agencies change their pay significantly in the last few months?
In detention?
No. We're comparing ourselves with, Eastboro and Derby and Mays, and did they all increase their pay significantly, like a few dollars an hour in the
Absolutely
last few months? So I'm beginning to wonder if this is, if we increase the pay, they're likely to just increase the pay again. I mean, I think this just keeps, I'm wondering if this is really a solution, because it seems to me that there's a lack of people. That's part of the problem here. There's a lack of people willing to do the job.
Part of the problem, but we're competing against people that are paying $25 an hour to 23 something an hour, and we're paying
I hear ya.
$20.78.
So let's say we pay $23.50, and we're going to be now. We'll be above Sedgwick. We'll be above Wichita State Police, Eastboro, Derby, and Mays. We'll be slightly below Bel Air. Right. I expect that they'll respond by bumping their pay up again. So we'll be in the same pickle again 6 months from now.
So what's occurred is that we were always comparing ourselves to the Wichita Police Department when I first came here, and was always told we'll never match them. Okay, but can we stay at least competitive? Over the years, we're not just trying to stay competitive with Derby. I get what you're saying, but the fact of the matter is, my responsibility to the citizens of Sedgwick County is that we provide quality public service. We got to have people to do it. We have, within the sheriff's office, we're mandated by state statute. You're mandated by state statute that mandates me on what we have to provide. We're not able to provide those services at a level that they should be. The only way I see fixing it is we have to have competitive pay to draw people in.
I agree we need competitive pay, so please don't misinterpret my comment here. But are you doing exit interviews to confirm the reasons why people are leaving?
Yes.
And they all say pay. It's it. That's the only thing they talk about.
So when I brought the 10% pay proposal, I had mentioned that we had done 3 surveys. We talked about supervision, management, a variety of issues, 7 issues. On 2 of those, pay was the number 1 concern. The third one, pay wasn't even on there, and pay was the number 1 concern. So our people are telling us it's the pay.
I am concerned about the mandatory overtime topic. I think that needs to be, I think there's a quality of life issue here. If someone can't plan a vacation or can't plan their time off, then they have no quality of life at all. That's a pretty big deal. I would do whatever we can to get back to a voluntary overtime. Overtime is probably part of our equation. We have to probably have some overtime, but voluntary overtime for those people that want to work extra hours, that's great. But I think the issue of mandatory overtime is it just kills the quality of life.
Trying since 2013 when I came here, I can't stand mandatory overtime. The problem is that because of all the burnout, people are taking sick days. We have to staff it. There's nobody else to bring in.
If someone comes in and says, I'm willing to do 40 hours or even 45 hours, I can't do mandatory. We ought to be able to hire somebody who says, I cannot do mandatory, but I can do this. We should say, okay. But if we say, nope, can't do that, we're not willing to take you at 45 or 50 hours a week, we have to have you for 60 or 65 hours a week, that's a non-starter. So I guess there may be a pool out there that's willing to do a regular shift. They're not willing to do the mandatory.
So then the morale issues that creates inside is everybody else that's already been hired is going to be mandated and the new folks aren't. It's not going to work.
I understand the problem, but I hear you. I hear your challenge. I get that. But once you go down this path this far, I think it's a problem that there's a pool of people out there that are willing to work a certain number of hours a week at whatever we're willing to pay. But the reality is, this issue of mandatory overtime destroys everything else in their entire life. They can't have a life with this.
Completely agree with you on that.
So I would encourage us to get back to voluntary as quickly as possible. And that should be for everybody. And
Been trying for 8 years.
okay.
And it just gets worse. Because, again, there is no staffing to fill these positions. So it's horrible. People have ball games they want to go to for their kids. And we come to them and say, sorry.
So they'll
but
quit.
you got to stay here for 4 hours. Exactly. They're quitting because
They
of
go
it.
someplace else and get.
Exactly. What we're having the problem with now, these two, their problem was total burnout. Because of all the overtime.
So the overtime is a consequence of pay. I get that. But the burnout's really the problem. The burnout's why you say, look, I understand the pay is not what they want it to be, but the burnout's why I'm quitting. I think that is apparent. I think that the burnout is a huge
But they both
issue
go
here.
side by side.
I understand that. Problem I'm seeing is if you would open this up and say, we're going to hire some people and not require mandatory overtime, I think you'll find some people who might be interested in the job.
You know, if there's other people in the county that we can train just to set in indirect pods, have no contact with the inmates, just answer their questions.
Yeah.
We can bring those folks in. I'm perfectly fine with that.
Let's take a look at that because we're chasing the dog chasing his tail here. We're going round and round and round and round. We're not really solving the problem. In fact, it's getting worse. So we've added a lot of pay in the last couple of years. They haven't really solved the problem. It's actually gotten worse. So I think
It
we
wasn't
need to
near
find-
enough, Commissioner.
Pardon me?
It was not near enough pay. That's why we're at where we're at. I
think
can
there-
tell you that, and without getting extremely passionate about this issue, because there's no managing out of this issue. None. We've tried. So.
You're
when-
misunderstanding my point, Mr. Sheriff.
No.
I'm not saying pay is not
I think
the
you're
problem.
misunderstanding my point, Mr. Howe, because when I came here, the pay was atrocious. We were giving 2% raises to 0% raises under Mr. Buchanan. That's what got us here. Let's make no mistake about that.
Commissioner Howell.
Can I just say one thing?
Let me go over to Commissioner Meitzner for a minute.
I feel like I need to say one sentence, please.
One-
I agree with you on the pay. Please start with that. I'm not against what you're proposing today. The quality of life is a big deal. And I'm saying pay, and you got to get the quality of life up. And that's all I'm going to say. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
We agree
Commissioner Meitzner.
completely.
Thank you. Sheriff, I know there's a lot to consider here. Follow my madness here. I do agree that, so you got this burnout issue that you're talking about, but it's compounded by the competitive pay in the region. And so it is pay, and as a result, quality of life, burnout, with life balance, as you referenced.
So it's all contributing, absolutely.
So let me ask a couple questions, Sheriff. So, you know, in my previous life, I was around this industry somewhat. What you're describing, you haven't touched too much, except by, you said, mandated by the state statutes. Are we pretty good with some legal liability that's potential?
Oh, absolutely.
We're okay? Or
No.
No.
I don't want to get into that in a public meeting.
Okay, that's alarming to me because I was around other areas that the feds moved in and whatever. So there's
Exactly.
So we could talk about that offline and maybe with manager and finance and legal. That being said, Commissioner Howell and I were just at the Sedgwick County Association of Cities last last Saturday, and in my experience here, this is kind of policy world, but we've done a really good job in this region to take a regional approach to a lot of things: employment, education, training, building highways, and to see these in a friendly environment, but to see these other cities commenting about how they're hiring away from us, and they're already trained and they're ready to go, they're certified. We're lacking a regional approach to law enforcement, mainly the jail. I think it appears the law enforcement side, tickets and arrests for property crimes, whatever, seems to be okay, but it seems like there's a ignoring or an ignorance about the jail crisis that you've presented. I would maybe suggest that we have we convene some kind of a countywide. This isn't regional. Can't go outside the county, but you are the county jail, and maybe we convene a law enforcement conference where they all realize what's going on, competitive pay wise, poaching our fellow employees back and forth. It didn't seem like we're having a regional approach to this. That's not going to solve your next paycheck, but I think this needs to get exposed, and we all, this region, this county, all the law enforcement need to be a part of this solution, because unless they've got their own jail or they want to build their own jail, which I don't think any of them want to do that. Even holding cells, do they?
No, there is no city in Sedgwick County. Everybody that is arrested in Sedgwick County comes to our jail, no matter what city they come from. So there is no municipal jail anywhere in this county.
Okay. So I think the city used to have one, right?
They did. Well,
But
it was combined here at the
Right.
county building, but yes.
it was kind of like the tunnel underneath.
Yeah, and then they combined it with this side of the county building where you had a city booking area, and that you had city employees that ran that part of the facility on city bookings only.
Okay. Let me ask, so, and if we talk to, if we get you, Sheriff, in front of some key people in the community outside law enforcement, do you think that, let's say there's people that say, you know what, I'm gonna ask my employees if they want it. I'm going to part-time. Can somebody get a job? I mean, you referenced a little bit with your conversation with Commissioner Howell. Can somebody that's didn't go to training academy for 2 or 3 months, whatever you do, can somebody come in and work to help relieve a lot of stuff part-time?
So we tried part-time. We took 6 full-time positions 3 years ago. Converted those to 12 part-time. We had 2 folks that were retired that came in. They wanted to choose their hours, which was first shift with Saturday, Sundays off, and that's not where we were short. So they lasted about a month. And we put that out to the public as well. If you want a part-time job, we can train you as we go. We had no takers.
Okay. So train as you go is potential, but it didn't
That's
work.
why
It's
if,
not working.
and I'll say, Sheena's the one that brought up to me earlier, because I hadn't really thought about other county employees that work in here that could work in the jail to relieve our deputies for the quality of life issue that Commissioner Howe's talking about. That could be done. There is a certain amount of training they would have to go through to even work in those indirects. But they wouldn't have physical confrontations with these folks. So all the use of force stuff, all that type of stuff does not need to be trained. They just need to understand how to run that particular pod and how to direct people to the answers that they're looking for the questions they have, or be able to answer people's questions.
Okay.
They wouldn't do rounds. They would have no inmate contact. So that's an option. I will also say we put out an RFP for off-duty solutions. Originally, we weren't going to. that manages all of our off-duty work, which a lot of that has ceased now too, from the deputies on the commission side, because we got to have them in here. Off-duty work doesn't matter to me. However, we still have to man the hospital. So because of that being put into it, which we would pay the overtime for, which means we would pay Off-Duty Solutions to manage all that. It had to go out to RFP. We were hoping we'd have it resolved by now. We had 93 companies that were interested. So that's going to be a long process now. We were going to try with other law enforcement agencies from around the county to utilize them for the hospital duty to give commission a break from doing that and work and just working inside. If that works, we were going to open that up for other agencies to come in here and work. But we're a long ways from that now because of the RFP process, and 93 companies put in that they were interested.
Okay, well, that helps maybe some long-term stuff.
We're trying, looking at everything we possibly can for long-term.
Okay, and thank you. I just got two more things. Thank you for allowing me. So policy-wise, probably can't answer it. Maybe this is for you all. Can we, can we separate jailer salaries as a separate entity, similar to what the fire department is, and what we've done with EMS and other departments? Can we, in that way, where I'm going at it is, if we have that as a separate pay structure, if you're a jailer, maybe it helps let some of these other people say, well, they're getting too much, and maybe I transfer into that or something like that, or just, Gina, what do you have a comment, or
So
we wanna
Commissioner, the
talk
sheriff
about
is
that later?
on his own pay plan. Are you referring to just the detention deputies?
Yes, just the jail problem.
I mean, that would be something we could look at, but they're just currently on the sheriff's plan.
Okay.
I'm looking at Mike here. I've never thought of that. That would require some type of legislative consideration. If you're talking about creating a taxing district for detention.
Well, or something just to isolate the detention problem as a separate thing we could focus on, to not have all the rules of other stuff, that we can get there quicker.
Well, it could be as simple as just creating a pay plan for
Okay.
detention, just like we did with corrections.
Right.
And then you carve out that. At the end of the day, though, Commissioner, we have two entities organizationally that do very similar work in corrections and detentions.
Yes.
It wouldn't get us out from that.
Yes, well, I guess corrections would be included. Yeah, same thing. Okay, well, if we can maybe look into that. And then finally, you mentioned your out-of-county problem, and I think you've said some counties in Kansas don't even have a jail anymore. They just book people.
Yeah, there's been 3 jails now. Now, they still have a jail because by law they have to have one. So all they're doing is booking people in and then shipping them to other counties. Now, granted, these 3 counties are pretty small. Their population's 15, 16 people, but they only have 3 employees. So if we continue down this path, that is something we're going to have to look at. That we ship almost everybody out of county. That is a horrible option.
Right.
Horrible for us.
Right. Even out of state.
Yeah, because the fact of the matter is, again, our population is very violent. Most are pretrial. We have maybe 200 people here that are on misdemeanor commitments out of our 1,508 employees. All these numbers were based on, not employees, inmates, 1,508. And so, first off, we'll never get them all out of here. There's not enough jails that will take them. Secondly, the transportation of that, we would have to, which we can do, is boost our transportation levels, but they might be going out of county for 2 days to come back for arraignment.
Right.
And they might be going down to Stanton County because that's the only place that's open. I mean, it would be a logistical nightmare.
Yeah. Okay, so with that, we charge these cities in the Sedgwick County and others. You have a fee that you charge, that we charge daily?
Yeah,
fee?
I don't charge the county. I have nothing to do with that fee, but the county does charge a fee. I don't know what that is.
Okay. And does anybody, when is the last do we update that periodically or all the time, or?
Commissioner, we update that annually. We go through, after we've completed the audit, and provide that financial information to the same consultant who does that cost allocation plan, the administrative charges. And we are allowed under, I think the litigation from 12 or 15 years ago, to impose the direct rate. So every year, we update that cost based on actual expenses incurred by the sheriff's office and the jail. We send an updated letter so that the cities can plan for it in their budget. And actually, I think for the first time since I've been here, that rate went down for this upcoming calendar year because the sheriff has had so many openings. The cost actually went down for the direct rate.
Because of the actual cost.
Because we weren't as fully staffed. So the direct.
But the double, triple overtime.
Well,
does that get to
that's
count?
been a more recent
Okay, all right.
development.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is, can we look, because we may have to help fill, I'm thinking financially, to fill the backside of this challenge. Can we, because it is Wichita and Derby and Bel Air people that are housed here, can we relook at those fees and see if there's any flexibility where we can at least add to some of the costs that I assume we're going to support trying to solve this problem, and it's going to come with a number, and it is our whole county involved in it. So I'd like, again, going back to the regional approach, I think everybody ought to be a part of this. They may not like it, but this is really alarming to me.
And we definitely can. I think the concern would be that at this point, they're all in the same boat we are, where they've published their maximum budgets. And so I don't know that it would be something we could do for 2023, but certainly for 2024. I guess my point is I don't necessarily want to hit the cities with a surprise with majorly increased fees. But we can sure talk about it if that's what the commission would desire.
Okay, well, I mean, we've done a nice job of peer cities and peer charges, and I mean, I'm kind of familiar with those per day charges, and I know it can be all over the place, but I'd just like to know if we have flexibility to obviously review and then consider that. So I took a lot of time, but thank you for letting me say a few words and question some things. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cruz?
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to make myself perfectly clear that I understand your challenges, but this is not just a pay issue. This is a systems issue. We have 512 people sitting in jail right now available for bond. So if they could bond out, if they had the money available, they could get out of our jail. The numbers are, we have 10 inmates who are sitting in jail for $100 to $500 bonds. We have 18 people sitting in for $1,000 and less bonds. Now, again, hear me clearly, safety concern is of utmost importance. Safety concern not only for your deputies, but the inmates in the jail because of lack of being able to spread out causes issues. But we did just allocate almost $10 million to get our court system up and running to get these people through our court system. Where we are with that, that's one thing. The second thing is community-based services are the best for these people that aren't violent, that aren't going to harm themselves or others, that could possibly be out, that aren't just sitting in jail because they don't have $500 to get out. So community-based services are exactly the type of thing that we should be focused on. So when we let people out of jail, we were just talking about this yesterday as a barrier and as something that the Barriers Group is going to be focusing on with the Mental Health and Substance Abuse Coalition, is making sure that people who leave the jail have med appointments, have mental health appointments, and that's just not happening right now. I mean, and this is no fault, I'm not placing blame anywhere. But when we want to talk about the real challenges that are facing our jail right now, it's the fact that we're only focused on housing people. We're focused on housing people, and we're focused on people that are in there watching them being housed. The focus has to be shifted. I don't know how many times I have said this, and maybe I'm speaking, I don't know, am I speaking female and people aren't listening to me?
Are you asking me that?
I know I'm just saying it as a general
Okay.
statement, because this is a systems issue. This is absolutely a systems issue. It is not just about pay. It is about the people in the jail getting the services that they need, and those who are able to get out, those who are, had $500 to bond themselves out. We have 5 females and 5 males. That if they had $500, they could get out of jail right now, today. We have 8 females and 10 males. If they had $1,000, they could get out of jail right now. So, and this is from the active inmate count that I received from Jared, Colonel Schechter, at the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council last week. So I don't want to hear the fact that this is just about pay. That is a vital concern, and I get that. But this is a systems issue, and we have to work on community-based services being offered within our jail. So when we talk about other positions in our jail, are we going to consider, if we're going to consider other positions, let's consider positions that create opportunities and appointments for those being released from jail to have a medication appointment already scheduled and transportation to it. Let's make sure that we have someone that is focused on mental health appointments, that they can get to those appointments as well. So let's talk about the recruiting efforts here for a second. I see that we're going to Hispanic churches, and I understand that that's one population of people that we could pull from, but where are we, what other types of things other than, why are we just targeting Hispanic churches? Was that?
No, that was listed because it was 10,000 flyers that went out with the churches that agreed to do that.
Okay.
In the Hispanic community. When I talk about other faith-based, that's in other parts of the community. We have tried in the African-American community. We have tried in the Asian community. We have tried in those particular areas. They were gracious enough to partner with us to develop, or we developed, and they distributed 10,000 flyers. So that was a highlight. There is so much more that we're doing, but there's only so much that I'm going to put on the slide.
Sure. Well, Sheriff, I understand your concerns. I hear in your voice the fact that we have to do something different, but creative solutions is in order right now. Community-based services are in order right now. Understanding who could be released from jail if they are not a threat to themselves or others in this community could be released from jail, and the services that they need, those community-based services that are proven to reduce recidivism rates, have to be focused on. And so those are the things that, we can talk about budgets all day long, which if this was brought to you last week, how long will it take for us to get the numbers in a form that we can see so that we can know the impact to our budget?
I think related to the sheriff in particular, it sounds like we can have that today. I don't know that we can have today the entire impact with like corrections and what that would do, but I understand the directive to come back next Wednesday with a plan, so we'll have it ready by then.
Okay. Again, I just want to reiterate, this number of active inmates who are available for bond, 512 of them, community-based services is where they need to go. That is the help they're going to get. And I hope that we can, if we're going to think about creative positions in our jail, it is positions that focus on when people get released, when people are let out of this jail, they have the supportive services that they need so they don't return. Thank you, Chairman, for the opportunity to share those thoughts.
Thank you. Commissioner Meister.
Can I respond to that? So
Certainly.
I agree with community-based services. You and I work both on the same board, have had many discussions. So that's not something that I support. The problem with that is that if we want to create new positions and put new money into those positions, bring them on. We can't supplement those positions for what we have in there right now. Because the fact of the matter is we're dealing with a lot of crime. we are dealing with a lot of people that are repeat offenders nonstop and have been put into services and have gotten back out. Not all of them, but have gotten back in trouble again. So I agree that community services is a piece of this to help solve it. So I understand what you're saying. You don't want to hear it's just about the money. The problem right now is those community services are not in place. And for us to do the job that we need to do, we have to have the staff, plain and simple.
Hey, Commissioner Meitzner?
Yeah, Sheriff, we've talked before, you have 1,500 people, and you've said, basically, many of them are, how many of those are violent people?
At this point, with the violent crimes that we have 123 murders, the child sex crime folks, all those type of folks. We're around 72% is pretrial felonies, which most of those are going to be the violent offenses.
Okay. Well, we heard an alarming message from Dr. Stedman about why Sedgwick County is just a large part of the Part 1 violators and murderers compared to even Johnson County and the rest of the state. So
We have a huge drug problem in this community. It's contributing to a lot of it.
yeah. Okay, well, I just wanted to try to get a grasp of how easy, if we release people into the community, I don't want to be responsible for adding to the crime. I think we're in a law and order type of day today. Besides the help that people need, there's a lot of concern about law and order in communities here in Wichita and around the country. So
There is, but there has got to be a balance, and especially when it comes to the drug addiction aspect of this. There's got to be other services, other things that we're doing. That's why I agree with Commissioner Cruz on the community-based stuff. We've got to do different. We're not going to rest ourselves out of this drug problem that we have whatsoever. And so there's got to be other options that's available, either through the state or some other function that we can turn the corner on this drug addiction issue that we have in this country and in this county.
thank you.
Thank you. Well, I just have a few comments. First of all, the sheriff, he has to manage the hand that he's dealt. He didn't create this problem. He's trying to solve his issues today. He has 110 openings. His vacancy rate is 49%. So we can't sit here and armchair quarterback his management. That's not what our job is. He has been elected by the public countywide to manage the jail and to take care of the sheriff's department. Our job, and we were elected 5 different portions of the county, is to support our other electeds in doing their job to manage the jail in this case. I agree that community-based programs are a great idea, but they can't be implemented overnight, and they can't solve the issue of 110 openings and 49% staffing today. Maybe in the future they can solve it. The bond outs, the sheriff didn't create that. The courts set the bond and put them back in jail until that they can meet that bond. We're penalizing the sheriff for other people, and that's not the way that we should be managing as county commissioners. Certainly we gave $10 million to upgrade the courts, but walk around on the 3rd floor and see where we're at right now on getting new courtrooms. You can see a ghost town as you walk across this floor, because right now trying to get the renovations done is expensive. It goes up every single day, and we can't even get the supplies and the labor in order to be able to do the upgrades. We've got 3 new judges coming in. I just voted this morning, and I voted for 3 new judges. So they're showing up on the roster, and they'll be here in January. That'll help a little bit, but that's January, and we've still got to give them courtrooms between now and then. We can't do everything overnight. He's got a problem today. He's told us pay is the issue, And all you got to do is look at his charts to show where we're at in pay compared to the other departments, the other police departments across the county. And he talks to everyone that's exiting. Pay is the issue. Out of county, we've talked about that a little bit. Well, one of the main reasons we've been huge advocates for a regional mental health facility is because he has to take his deputies and transport them all the way to Larned or Osawatomie to put them in, and then send 2 deputies to go get them and bring them back. It'd be the same thing with trying to put them in out of county jails because we have to do the exact same thing. We need to be able to solve his problem. The other thing is once we ship somebody out of the county, they've lost all their local support systems. Same argument we have for a regional mental health facility is the reason not to ship people out of county. So I believe that my job as a county commissioner is to listen to the sheriff who was elected to manage the jail. And when he tells us he has a problem, we as elected officials need to be able to respond to help him solve his problems. He is the manager, we are his support. So I truly would like to see us getting something on the agenda for a week from tomorrow so that we can start figuring out some kind of solutions for the sheriff. Thank you.
I just add in here, we have quite a list here to go through, and I will say the only way to solve this issue is through a multifaceted approach. It's not pay only, but I think each of these facets are going to have to be addressed, and the fastest one we can round up, Chairman, is the numbers on pay. Community-based services, I think everyone around here agrees with that. The challenge, and we'll have to do the analysis, the challenge is going to be, do we have the money or do we need new dollars infused to embolden those programs? The other issue is, even in our community-based programs today, we have staffing problems. So I don't even know if there's the people in the community-based programs to take people from the sheriff, divert those out of the system, because we have personnel matters over there in the country, not just in Sedgwick County, but in the country this is going on. So we have to analyze this. I've got probably 8 or 9 action steps written down. We're going to have to touch each one of them. At the end of the day, we're going to have to determine if there's enough resource, enough money to do what we need to do, or do we need new money coming in to solve this problem? I think it is. The county has a lot of issues right now. Government has a lot of issues, state and federal. In Sedgwick County, I think this is the biggest issue we have right now, is the Sheriff's Department. And I think all of the staff, HR, finance, management staff will support Sheriff and help him. And we will look at a multifaceted strategy moving forward that we will keep the commission aware of and present out occasionally too, so you are up to speed on as we make strides toward fixing this.
Thank you. Any other questions for Commissioner Howell?
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple wrap-up questions here. Every time we talk about this, I think that the community has a lot of misunderstanding exactly the nature of the charges that people are in, the nature of the charges that are people in the jail. Mm-hmm. A lot of people think that someone got picked up for having a tiny quantity of marijuana and they're being housed in the jail. Can you please speak to the fact that we don't have people like that locked up?
Yeah, there's, so when it comes to marijuana possession, I know the city of Wichita, they give UCCs on it, basically a ticket. So they're not even booked unless it's a felony level type issue. Once they come into the jail, because specifically marijuana, they're in and out of there very quickly. It's what's called an OR bond, own recognizance. You don't have to post a bond. I will tell you, all drugs is that way at this point. So anybody if you're arrested with fentanyl and possession of it, you're treated the same way, because you cannot. It takes us almost 6 months to get it tested. The DA requires for us to know exactly what it is before they charge. You only have 72 hours. That's never going to happen. So they're in and out of there fairly quickly, within 2 to 4 hours.
If they're a trafficker, say they have large quantities, they're the supply chain, so to speak. That may be different for someone like that.
Unfortunately, folks that are arrested with large quantities of narcotics, if they're charged at the state level, they're probably in and out of there fairly quickly. If it's for drugs only, because again, we can't get them tested in that 72-hour period to charge, and you have to have that information to charge.
So roughly 1,500 inmates under your control. How many of those are at the annex?
We have 177 there now.
And in the main facility, about how many are there? You have some out, let me ask the other question. How many are out of county right now?
We have 180 out of county.
So the balance would be at the main facility?
Yeah, yes.
All right. When we send them out of county, is that the most expensive option we have?
Well, when you look at, and I don't know, every year that kind of gets updated, and with inflation on food and everything, roughly $72 a day is what it costs taxpayers of Sedgwick County to house here in our jail. Currently, with our current folks out of county, we're paying $35 a day. Now, those prices are going up. We'll never house with them, but there's a jail up in the Lawrence area that's charging $200 a day if you want to house with them. Most jails are going to $45 to $50 a day. And so it ranges right now between $45 to $200, depending on where you go.
So you're saying it's less cost per day
To house out of county than our costs here.
So I assume if they're here because they have to go in and out of court, there's things are happening, you really kind of have to have them here. But if they're going to be a long time till the next action, they probably could go out of county and possibly.
There's so many caveats to that, Commissioner. If they have any medical issues, they stay here because of the medical, and there's several other issues.
This is please don't read into my question. I'm trying to learn. Okay.
Yep.
Is there any non-government based inmate housing options in the state of Kansas? In other words, privatized.
Yeah. The only one that I'm aware of is at the federal level, where they're housing federal inmates. It's a place that got sued here recently. Was in the was in the federal court system for quite some time. That's the only one that I'm aware of.
Is that legislatively necessary, or is it just the way we do business?
Well, again, it's federal level, and so there's that's part of the competition we face when we're trying to ship out of county. The feds are paying $75 a day. Well, these jails are going to take them for $75 a day, and so if they don't have enough room at the other jails for federal inmates to be housed, then they go to this privatized place up in the, I think, Lansing, Topeka area.
If you had more annex space, would that be part of a solution that would make this easier?
When you were on the board when we came to you in reference to what we wanted to do with the annex, we had all the numbers, ADP. We won't have to ship anybody out of county.
Yeah.
And then the violent crime rose, and our population went up to 1,600. That was based on a 1350 ADP. So
I guess what I understand is that the least troublesome inmates, 177, are people that basically are a little easier to manage, so to speak. That's why they're over.
Most of them are out of county too, because they're not having to come back to court. Those are commitments, city commitments that for 3 to 6 months. Okay. So they're easy to get out of county. Most counties will take them because they don't have the violent stuff going on. And we don't have to keep going and getting them and bringing them back to meet with lawyers. Because you have to understand, too, all these folks have to meet with their defense attorneys. Their defense attorneys aren't going to go to them. And so that means any meeting that they have with the defense attorney in between all of the hearings, we bring them back for that. If they have any medical issues, we have to bring them back for that.
So I have to I'll wrap up my comments. I think that Commissioner Dennis was correct that the emergency is pay. We need to deal with that first, but I also agree with Commissioner Cruz. I think there's a lot of other things we need to look at. Mm-hmm. And I've been a fan of the, treat solutions before they become problems if you can. There's a return on the investment, and I think that's the way, and I think everybody in the room agrees with that. I do agree with Commissioner Dennis that we'll have to deal with the pay as an emergency issue, so that's a priority, but I'd like to look at everything. I don't know if there's a way we can create an advisory council or something that says, how do we solve this thing? Because I'll repeat, I hate to repeat myself, but I don't think there's actually people out there that can fill these jobs, and that's my concern. I think that at the end of the day, If we could raise the pay to any number, I don't know that people would fill these jobs. And at the end of the day, if we have burnout, because we're essentially making people do things they really don't want to do, this problem may never be solved. So I think we can throw some pay at this, as we have in the past. We'll do it again, but I don't know if it's really going to solve the problem. I think we have to be focused on other ways to solve this problem over the next year or two, because I think it's not just a pay issue.
Yeah, and I think from a staffing issue, we brought to you guys the whole camera issue with turning the North Towers into nothing but cameras. That's a possible solution to some of the staffing issues. That's only 24 positions that it would cut. But I was hoping to have those in by this fall, and that's not going to happen. So it's going to be at least a year probably before everything's up and running on that.
Thank you. Mr. Manager,
Just one
any
more
closing
thing.
comments?
We have a criminal justice coordinating council that was started many, many years ago by the commission, and the rationale for that was to look at the jail overcrowding issue. I don't know why we couldn't consider or shouldn't consider revising that justice council, because the sheriff's getting a lot of, I don't know, use the right word, or blame for what is, I do believe Commissioner Cruz is right, there's systems issues here too that have to be looked at. The judges are part of this team, the DA is part of this team, citizens are part of this team, and business owners are part of this team. I don't know why we couldn't look, and I think I would suggest to the commission, we look at a revision of Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, put new people on that, different people on that, and tackle this money and systems problem through that mechanism, and it'd be a very public discussion. So just to consider that.
Unfortunately, the CJCC only meets once per quarter, and the attendance has been so bad they've had trouble having a quorum. So if we're going to do that, we need to change the way it's working.
I agree.
And I agree that that's one possible solution, but there has been most of the information that's at the CJCC is receive and file. We don't drive policy, we receive information. So again, I think that the purpose of the CJCC and its creation was a great idea, but that's really not, I don't think, capable of doing what we're talking about right now.
I agree.
We need something that can actually say, let's look at some fresh ideas. Let's drive forward some solutions that would actually solve this thing more strategically over the next couple of years. It's not, and Sheriff, I love you, brother, but it's not just pay. There's a lot of other issues here at the table here. Pay is a great part of this, and I'm supportive of your idea. But we've got to look at other issues here as well. That's all I'm saying.
So we did actually talk about a re-evaluation last week. I think that you were unable to attend for some reason, Commissioner Howell. But we did talk about that last week, about involving more judges, getting Chief Judge involved with those folks that are doing the sentencing. That was one major component. We did have a judge from the city there who discussed some communication challenges between the city and the county. And so I wholeheartedly agree that that needs to be reimagined. I don't think creating a whole additional anything is going to help, but I think with the Mental Health and Substance Abuse Coalition, with the continuum of care, with the United Way runs, I think I think a lot of these boards and a lot of these councils are all sort of doing the same work. We're all just doing them at different times in different rooms. And that's been probably the most frustrating thing for me, who sits on all of these, is that everybody's saying the same thing, but it's all just talk. San Antonio had a 17-year overnight success. Well, if we don't start doing, we're going to have a 17-year just talk fest. And so it's important that we do it now. I just want to make sure that everyone understands. I understand that pay is an issue. I'm just saying that's not the only issue. I have supported the sheriff since day one here, so it's not a matter of not supporting you, as my fellow commissioners have sort of alluded to. I do understand that we have a challenge, but it is about creative thinking and not doing the way that we've been doing it since 1985. This is a reimagination of how we're doing government. And it's important that we take that seriously and start doing actionable items like making sure that people have an appointment to mental health appointments, appointments to their medication providers, appointments to addiction recovery services. Those are real things that change the ball for these folks. And until we start doing that, we're going to have this pay concern because people are still going to be in the jail and nothing has changed. It's the status quo over and over and over. And until we start thinking differently and actually doing, we're going to be
So
stuck in
can
a
I add
cycle.
to your guys' conversation real quick? So with what both commissioners are saying, we did meet, it was last week or the week before, and had this almost exact same conversation of I can give you the numbers every quarter of what the jail looks like, but it doesn't mean anything. And so we threw out information on what we could do differently in CJCC to make it more of a group that is coming up with solutions, making different types of recommendations, those type of things. I think this is a good time, and Rusty's here because he's part of it, and his intern kind of arranges the meetings. So where we really put out to everybody on the CJCC, how do we retool this? And that's by adding business people. That's by adding, other folks that either provide these services to give us good recommendations because they're really not in the room. It's a lot of government. One of the things that I will tell you is we used to have a chief judge here who chaired those. And so we've got to get more involvement by our own judges here. Because a lot of stuff that we're talking about here is dependent on a judge's ruling. So I completely agree with both of you, but we've got to, I think CJCC is it, but it needs to be retooled.
Very good. I don't see any other comments. Sheriff, you have any final comments?
No, and I really appreciate your time today. I know some of the discussion's very spirited, but it is... it's very difficult to manage this. And so I appreciate you listening to me today and taking everything I said into consideration. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I know that we've got a couple action items for you to come back to the commission here in the near future to see what we can do this year. And also, I think the discussion on CJCC, trying to retool that is an important discussion moving forward. So I appreciate everyone's time today. And anything else from the commission that needs to come before the board today? Seeing nothing, anything from staff? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you all.